Hi, and welcome to a new episode of the Today in Manufacturing podcast. I'm Anna Wells. With me today are Jeff Renke and Ben Munson. We're the editors of Manufacturing.net and Industrial Equipment News, and we each have about 15 years of experience covering the manufacturing industry. So each week we cover the 5 biggest stories on our websites and discuss the implications that they have on the industry going forward. Please make sure to like, subscribe to, and share the podcast. You could also help us out by leaving the podcast a positive review on whichever platform you use. Finally, to email the podcast, you can reach us at Jeff, Anna, or Ben at IEN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. David is on the road this week. You can also reach David if you'd like, David at IEN.com. We are typically live every Thursday at 2 p.m. We're still trying to make up for 4th of July week. We're still working our way out. But I think back this Thursday in our regular rotation. So we hope to see you then on YouTube. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel at IENmagazine.com. At IEN Magazine on YouTube to get a notification when we go live. All right, this week's episode is sponsored by Oil Eater. Oil Eater cleaners and heavy-duty degreasers were specifically designed to replace dangerous solvents and are used by industries throughout the world. The company's ultra-concentrated formulas are perfect for light, medium, or heavy cleaning and can be used with parts washers, shop floors, equipment, and more. For a free sample, visit IEN.com/oileater. So how's everybody doing this week, Ben? Happy to have you here.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Loving it.
Awesome. I want to take that at face value. I feel like
so easy to please.
Yeah. No, was that super convincing? I don't know. Yeah.
Let's do a before and after poll on Ben Munson, see if he's still happy.
Ben's either happy to be here or miserable to be here. I don't know.
No, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me. Seriously.
Jeff? How about you?
I also couldn't be happier.
Oh my gosh.
The fact that Ben is here, I mean, filming on a Monday, mixing it up a little bit, how could it be any better?
Yeah. It's like 90% humidity and 85 degrees out. So everyone was probably super excited to leave the house, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
As was I.
It's really great.
Yeah. Great day to be alive. Okay. So we're going to start with our 5th most popular story on our websites this week, and that is a story about U.S. Steel. The headline is very long. Bear with me. I'm going to take a deep breath. Sale of U.S. Steel kicks up political storm, but Pittsburgh isn't Steeltown, USA anymore. So generations of Pittsburgh residents have worked at steel mills and rooted for the Steelers in the city dubbed Steeltown, USA. Now, the region's most storied steel company, U.S. Steel, is on the cusp of being bought by Japanese steelmaker Nippon Steel Corp. in a deal that's kicking up controversy. U.S. Steel is no longer a major steelmaker in an industry dominated by the Chinese, but its workers still carry political heft in what's some see as a larger symbolic fight to save what's left of manufacturing in the United States. With that, you have 2 presidential candidates who have both all but vowed to block the sale, considering also that the powerful United Steelworkers Union is opposed to the buy. Once the world's largest corporation, U.S. Steel was the world's 27th largest steelmaker in 2023, according to World Steel Association figures. It reported just under $900 million in net income on $16 billion in sales last year. Since the deal was announced, Nippon has engaged in a PR campaign, assuring local residents it intends to preserve jobs, invest in badly aging plants, and that, quote, U.S. Steel remains U.S. Steel. The deal, if it goes through, would close later this year. And perhaps the debate is a symbolic one in many ways. In recent years, the region has moved away from heavy industry and into jobs in medical and technology, and many locals actually object to the environmental impact of steel production. One analyst actually believes that the Pittsburgh region's steelmaking peak came in the 1920s. So, Jeff, is Pittsburgh still a steel town?
No, it's not. And I think it's interesting, this slogan that they're using there, U.S. Steel remains U.S. Steel. It should be U.S. Steel remains the new form of U.S. Steel. I mean, we're not looking at a company that was the 6th largest steelmaker in the world or 12th or 15th or 21st. It's the 27th largest steelmaker in the world. Its position is no longer that of a dominant player. It's not even the biggest one in the U.S. It trails Nucor by quite a bit. Looking a little bit more pragmatically, and I know that's easy for me. I don't have the same sort of emotional connection that maybe local folks in Pittsburgh do to the steelmaking industry. But it hasn't been a dominant player. This is a company that did about $900 million in total revenue last year. That was down from $2.3 billion the year before. So it's not going in the right direction. It lost $80 million in the fourth quarter of 2023. So when these types of transactions come into play, there's a lot more benefit that can be realized when it isn't overly politicized, which is what's going on here right now with all the things that you mentioned there, and I'm sure Ben's going to get into that a little bit more. But again, this is not what it was. And I think Nucor coming in, and granted they're not making a ton of commitments to
Nippon.
Pittsburgh. Nippon. They're not making a ton of commitments to the workforce or anything like that at this point because they haven't gotten in there yet. Plus, they're inheriting a company that is down 2/3 in total revenue. So you can appreciate that. I think what folks in this area are realizing, and there's a really interesting sort of quote to close out that article, basically saying it'll be interesting to see after the election how many people are opposed to the sale, because of what is sort of the rhetoric that's going on right now. And when things that are going on in Pittsburgh, too, when you look at all the tech companies, and you alluded to some of them, I think the two that really caught my eye is you're looking at like Aurora, which is a driverless vehicle technology company focusing on like semi-trucks. And they're backed by Argo AI, which is like a joint venture with Ford, also focusing on vehicle autonomy. That's also kind of shying away from a place like Carnegie Mellon, which is synonymous with sort of industrial innovation as a university. So there's a lot going on in Pittsburgh that's transitioning away from these traditional businesses, or when you think of steel or whatever. So again, when you try to put it into a light of we're losing a steel manufacturer in Steel City, it's just not accurate anymore. U.S. Steel hasn't been U.S. Steel in quite some time. And I think if you look bigger picture too, by holding up this type of transaction, with Nippon trying to come in and you would hope invest in the company a little bit, if this isn't allowed to take place, U.S. Steel is going to continue to operate at a loss. And what is that going to do long term for U.S. market share in the steel industry? It's no longer a profitable company. What happens if they just have to close the doors at some point? That's going to put us in an even tougher spot. The defense issues are also very difficult to swallow. We talked about this before. The U.S. does billions of dollars in defense contracts with Japan. Nippon's a Japanese company, obviously, so I don't quite get the correlation there as well. So I think there is a lot of posturing here that's really taking away from a business deal that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. Ben, do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I've said this before, and I'm sure I'll say it again, but Jeff is right. This deal has
Let's
been turned
everyone
into
remember that.
Yeah, this
especially
deal
in the Ranke household.
This deal has been turned into a political football, essentially. And both the companies have made promises to protect jobs, to move the U.S. headquarters for Nippon Steel to Pittsburgh from Houston, and invest in the aging plants. And it's not like you're talking. I mean, you've made all these points already, Jeff, but it's not like we're talking about a thriving business here. That's that's going to make it on its own no matter what. You're talking about something that could be on its last legs, and this could be kind of a final chance to save what's left of it. But yeah, it seems like the name and the historical context are what driving this and making this a political issue when it doesn't need to be.
Well, it's interesting too. What I was thinking about too, and maybe I'll pose this to you guys. So Nucor is the biggest U.S. steel manufacturer. They're still like only in the top 15 in the world. So what if a U.S. manufacturer buys U.S. steel? Okay, consolidates and shuts down a bunch of stuff in Pittsburgh. Are we going to think about this differently? Is there still going to be all of this clamoring, I guess, or all the worrying and political posturing?
Well, I think that's what the big problem is here, is because there's so much nuance to this situation. I mean, as you guys both mentioned, so say this does get blocked, what next? We know that Cleveland Cliffs was very interested in in buying U.S. Steel. They ended up getting outbid. U.S. Steel was not open to that purchase. However, say this gets blocked and then Cleveland Cliffs does buy U.S. Steel. We have no guarantees that that's going to work out somehow better for these workers, It just, to me, it's like a very nuanced situation that I think, you read that quote. I mean, that's spot on. It's like, well, what happens next, though, if we just for kind of no reason shut this thing down for political posturing's sake or whatever? nothing is guaranteed after that. And so I think right now, you have a bird in the hand, do you take Nippon at its word that they're going to try to maintain the company name and the jobs? I almost feel like that's just a better option than rolling the dice, because you are, again, certainly not guaranteed that you're going to get a better shake in 1 year, 2 years, maybe when you're in a worse position.
Right. No, I think I would agree. I think it makes a sense. Plus, a lot of sense. U.S. Steel also just made a lot of investments in new facilities, better, more environmentally friendly facilities. I want to say it's in Arkansas or in the southeastern part of the country. So that there's been other investment, just not necessarily in the traditional geography that you think of U.S. Steel. So it's the company as a whole does have some positive elements to it on the horizon. It's just sort of getting past potentially this initial obstacle.
Yeah, and those, some of those, to your point, some of those Pennsylvania plants, they have been trying to sell. They've been considering closing. Yeah. They have closed some plants. Like, it's just, that could be what's in the future, no matter what happens here. So
yeah, and you can keep a team name even though it doesn't necessarily apply to your city anymore, right? I mean, like there's the Utah Jazz, right? Yeah. I mean, the Green Bay Packers, are they still doing a ton of meat packing up in?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
You can still be the Steelers.
Be the Steelers, always. All right. Our next most popular story, another fatal accident at a troubled tank cleaning business. This is a story, a follow-up on something that we covered a couple years ago. So the company is called Koala. It says it operates the largest independent network of tank cleaning, maintenance, and industrial services in North America. They're tasked typically with cleaning up hazardous substances from the chemical, food, and transportation industries. OSHA cited the company over various violations when, in 2019, a pair of employees working for Koala Services in LaPorte, Texas, died while cleaning the inside of a tanker truck. Unfortunately, it appears the incident didn't make an impact enough on operations, as last year a similar incident claimed the life of a 53-year-old worker. OSHA says Koala Services disregarded federal safety standards that could have protected the employee from hazardous working conditions and prevented the fatal injury. For example, the company is said to have failed to make sure that atmospheric testing was performed inside the tank before the employee entered. Koala also failed to allegedly provide an attendant while employees were in such spaces. They failed to identify an authorized entry duration, which services to contact in the event of an emergency, or even how to call emergency services. Koala even failed to specify personal protective rescue and communications equipment and alarm systems. In a statement, OSHA said that if Koala had made the safety reforms as required in 2020, another employee would not have lost their life. Koala was cited for 8 repeat violations and now faces more than $800,000 in penalties. Jeff, what do you think is happening here at Koala?
Well, first of all, good to see OSHA with some teeth here. I mean, that is a very substantial penalty. I don't know if we can ever put a price tag, obviously, on someone's life and things of that nature. But in comparison to other fines we've seen, this is definitely on the higher side. So I think that's a positive. I think one of the things that I picked up in doing a little bit of research on Koala, it's how much they've grown really in the last 5 years or so. Some pretty prominent acquisitions and some mergers that have taken place. They've also opened up a lot more regional branches. So the business has expanded significantly. Well, when you're doing that, time pressures can definitely come into play. If you're taking on more business and more work and wanting to grow and expand, you can see how things got overlooked, potentially from a safety perspective, which in this line of work, there's no excuse for that. I mean, that is paramount to what you're doing, especially with these types of jobs where you're dealing with obviously some noxious chemicals and a lot of things that, well, safety just needs to be first and foremost. I think this, again, goes into a culture issue. We've talked about that before. What it really kind of reminded me is in the military, being on a rifle range. When anybody, regardless of rank, stature, role on that range, if anybody sees anything wrong, they can yell a ceasefire and everything shuts down on that range. Doesn't matter who, doesn't matter what they saw, whatever it takes, safety is paramount, first and foremost. Those are the types of things that companies, especially in this line of work like Koala is doing here, those things need to be in place. If somebody is not comfortable, it doesn't matter about timeliness, doesn't matter about the customers. Obviously, those safety parameters need to be coming first and foremost, and anybody deserves the right to say, no, I'm not feeling good about this. This doesn't look right. Shut it down. Make it right before you proceed.
Yeah, well, and I feel like the environment that we've been in the last few years is a little bit of a two-headed snake for a services firm like this, because not only are they probably getting a huge influx of business from companies who are trying to outsource some of the stuff because they don't have the workers to do it, and then secondly, Koala is probably dealing with their own turnover problem, trying to hire enough people to accommodate this level of work, and then you have training gaps. You have, the people aren't there who know that this doesn't feel right. This isn't the right way to do it. Maybe some of those people are paired up with each other, and then suddenly you have this, very problematic work setting that from a safety standpoint, cannot persist. But unfortunately, it has. So, Ben, what do you think about the practices that were in place here?
Yeah, I was reading the story, and they talk about atmospheric testing and not making sure this was done. And I think not even bothering to do atmospheric testing before letting an employee enter a confined space, it almost seems like criminal negligence. The process doesn't seem overly complicated. First, you test for oxygen, then combustible gases, and then finally toxic gases and vapors. One manufacturer I found said it's even okay to just tie a rope to the detector and lower it into a confined space so you can test remotely. So the equipment seems easy enough to use, and it should be readily available. I know this may have come down to user error or a problem with the actual device, but that just seems like something that should be kind of hammered home. This has to happen before you go in. It's not hard to do. You can even tie a rope to it. I mean, that's how easy it is. It's just basically like a yo-yo, and you dip it in there, and then it tells you if you can go in or not, right? Mm-hmm. It blows my mind that they would kind of skip over that.
Yeah, and that technology has been around for a long time. It's very mature, so it's not like it's the 1800s and you just have to do a smell test. I mean, it's really easy to test.
You got to send the canary.
So it's frustrating that that's not being done. But I agree. Hopefully the massive fine. This is a terrible black mark on this company. Hopefully they learn a few hard lessons here.
Yeah, I wasn't super familiar with the history of OSHA fines going into this, so I almost thought 800,000 seemed a little, not enough for what's been going on. Consider the repeated offenses, and that they had this plan to kind of fix things in 2020, and if they had done it, then this worker would almost certainly still be here.
Yeah. All right, moving on to our third most popular story this week. Sony layoffs signal the death of recordable Blu-ray. It seemed the DVD met its match in 2006 when Blu-ray discs hit the media market with better audio quality and much more storage capacity. But some recent news from Sony suggests that the Blu-ray disc might be on its way out. According to reports, Sony recently confirmed that it would be laying off some 250 workers at its Recordable media manufacturing plant in Japan. And while the production changes reportedly only pertain to recordable discs at this time, not pressed discs like those that are being used for mass-produced products like record or movie releases, sources say Sony will gradually cease production of optical disc storage media products, including Blu-ray discs. Sony intends to continue to sell B2B versions for consumer products by making them in advance. Not to mention you can stock up on writable discs now, at least for the short term, we think. Sony told AV Watch that it has yet to decide on a specific end date and that it will continue to sell them for the time being. So I think there's still time to make that one last epic mix if that's in the cards for you. Ben, what did you think about this story about Sony?
It resonated with me. When I first met my wife, I used to make her mixtapes on burned CDs all the time. But that was 20 years ago. And that was when optical drives were fairly essential features on laptops and desktops. And I still have an old MacBook at home with a disk drive in it, and the whole thing weighs maybe 10 pounds. It's just huge. I used to bring it with me to shows, and I'd be so tired. At the end of the day, I was like, why am I carrying this humongous machine? But it's I think as manufacturers like Apple and others have worked to make their computers smaller and lighter, the optical drives are one of the first things to go. And now you have to really go out of your way to buy a new computer with a disk drive in it. And that's probably even what to do with that. It's probably such a foreign concept to a lot of younger consumers. So it's a little surprising that writable discs made it this far at Sony.
So I don't know what the kids do now. Do they like make a Spotify playlist and share it? Is that how you make the mixtape of today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
You're so cool.
I'm never doing that.
You're cool, Mom. Look at you.
Do you give it a cool name? Like Blistering Hot Jams 2024?
They're not that cool.
Oh, okay.
They're not as creative as
You
we
can
were.
use that, anyone.
Blistering Hot Jams
Blistering
2024.
Hot Jam.
I'll
get to work on that, yeah.
I like that.
Jeff, what are your thoughts on the demise of the Blu-ray recordable disc?
I was never a mixtape guy, so I was surprised
on.
this didn't happen sooner.
Yeah, right.
Well, don't you remember like buying? You could buy like 100 of these like blank CDs for like $5.
Well, later, but at the beginning, they were very expensive.
I don't believe you.
Yeah.
I was on the cutting edge of this.
I guess It
was kind of fragile media too. Like if you didn't really, take very good care of it, they would like peel apart. They would like delaminate, and then your cool mixtape is just gone.
Yeah, I guess I missed out. I was just never that guy. So
Yeah.
I was shocked that this was actually still out there and viable to the point where it employed 250 people at this facility. So
Yeah.
this was surprising to me. I think it is interesting in doing a little research though. Right around the pandemic, there was like this surge in like non-streaming media, I guess what do you call it? Like hardware media or
Okay, yeah.
to the point where like DVD sales like tripled year over year or something like that, like 20 and 2021 before.
Really?
Now these weren't recorded; these were like press discs. This was like movies and things like that. But still, so maybe there was also some sort of trickle down effect to people who were trying to, I don't know, bring back CDs to use in your car or something like that, or listen to. So it's interesting to see how people almost looked at it as sort of a collectible type item, I guess. Mm-hmm. So maybe some of those Blistering Hot Jams that you put together could totally have some value now from somebody who just ironically wants to listen to some music.
I want you to know that, like, I mean, you probably already guessed this, but my mix CDs were the best. They were really good, like professional level good.
How depressing were they? How many emo rock groups did you have in there?
So many sad emo songs. They were good though.
Yeah, I think CDs actually sound better too. So if you have a way to like play them in your car, I guess I would definitely do that if you have it like instead of streaming.
Yeah,
streaming is very compressed and tinny, and CDs are not. Not a lot of cars have a CD player anymore. Does your car have a CD player?
No, not anymore. We just bought new vehicles, and so like our last vehicle had a CD drive in it. It doesn't. So now I'm done with that, which is sad because I did have all these like Mel Torme and Frank Sinatra CDs that I would play in the car, and they sounded great. Anyway.
I saw a stat too. There's just as many records like vinyl being sold right now as like CDs. Kind of interesting how that's come back too.
Yeah, I'm surprised. What surprised me the most about this story was that Blu-ray hit the market in 2006. To me, that was like the digital age already. I don't know. Like I just remember that.
That was a big deal.
I know, and it just seemed like, to me, I was like, must have been like the 80s. I don't know. It seemed like a long time ago that we were dealing with discs.
Yeah, I've been buying vinyl for long enough now that I've kind of seen the resurgence too, and the prices start to go up now that major manufacturers want to be a part of it. Yeah, so you got to spend like $35 for an album at Target.
Gross.
And then the checkout person will just kind of fling it down there, or like go under the belt or something like that. It's like, well, you're kind of supposed to take care of it. That's the whole point of this thing.
Do you slap them? Just like slap their hands when they do that?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
What are you doing? Yeah. But vinyl collecting is another huge like physical media thing too. But I think with everything, you get to a point where you're starting to remember the convenience of streaming. I have about 700 albums, and it's a huge storage thing. And it weighs a ton. Like I can't move ever again.
Yeah.
At some point, I may have to move them like to the basement just so they don't fall through the floor, because it's like almost the equivalent of parking a car in your living room.
Oh, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And are they like alphabetized, or how do you do that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm not an animal. Yeah. Yeah.
He uses a digital app for that.
I do have an app. Yeah.
Can you make us a mix record? How do you do that?
Yeah.
That can't be done, can it?
I think you can do that.
You can?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Producer Eric's eyes got huge when you said, could that be done?
Yeah. Let's figure it out.
These two audio nerds here.
All right.
I want a
I'll
record
name
player in my car.
Yeah.
As long as there's some Sarah McLachlan on there for Anna.
That is not the kind of music I'm into, Jeff. It's like
Your mixtapes didn't have any. I'm trying to think of the other.
that is not emo, by the way.
That's
No, that's like Lilith Fair, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we just meeting for the first time today, Jeff?
Sorry.
All right. Our next most popular story is some more info on another story that we covered. Actually, you were on the podcast for this one, the Dutch roll, because I remember how you were like, I want to eat that.
Yeah, I know. I'm back for the Dutch roll, but don't worry, I had lunch before the podcast today, so I'm fine. I'm not like super hungry.
You're not salivating
I'm not
over
just gonna
this.
keep talking about food. Let's go get some Dutch rolls.
Yeah,
Hey,
let's.
Is anybody else hungry?
Some sort of drizzle on top. All right, so the story is titled "Southwest Jet in Dutch Roll Incident Was Parked Outside During Severe Storm." So recently we covered this incident on a Southwest airline flight where a Boeing plane experienced a Dutch roll, which is a rocking and swaying mid-flight that's become rather uncommon due to modern airplane designs. The NTSB has been investigating the incident and has unveiled a new detail. The agency says the plane was parked overnight at the New Orleans airport on May 16th during thunderstorms that packed gusting winds up to 84 miles per hour, heavy rain, and a tornado watch. So on May 23rd, just a week later, the plane underwent scheduled maintenance, and afterwards pilots noticed that the rudder pedals were moving when the yaw damper was engaged. The yaw damper is what is supposed to limit this Dutch roll from happening. So pilots on the May 25th flight then felt the pedals moving during the Dutch roll and even after landing, the NTSB said. So after the plane landed, Southwest mechanics found fractures in the metal bracket and ribs that hold a backup power control unit to the rudder system. Investigators examined the damaged parts last week in Utah. John Cox, a former airline pilot and now a safety consultant, believes the plane was most likely damaged during the storm. He said the near hurricane force winds could have caused the rudder on the parked jet to slam back and forth. Cox said that there was absolutely no way in the world the Dutch roll caused such severe damage, nor does he think that it was related to the maintenance work. He says he doesn't see it as a Boeing MAX or a 737 issue, rather as a, quote, one-off. Southwest inspected its 231 MAX jets last month and found no other cases of damage around the rudder power units and no problems in new planes it has received since. So it was the only one parked outside during that storm, is what it sounds like? Or I don't know. This is a really interesting story. A lot that we've learned in the last couple of weeks as the NTSB has been investigating. Jeff, did you have a first take on this?
I think it was great to hear from a guy like John Cox, who seems to be very partial and not unbiased, sort of in his description of the situation.
Impartial.
What did I say?
Partial.
Impartial. Yes. Non-biased. Just because he came on and just said it's not a 737 issue, it's not a MAX issue. This is kind of one of those one-off deals. And the first thing that it made me think of is when we talk a lot to maintenance software providers. They talk about that, especially like the historian part of that software management program, where you can put in a lot of these different environmental factors and how that may impact maintenance down the line.
Yeah.
So a storm isn't necessarily something that you would correlate to maintenance. I mean, you'd want to check obviously for the obvious damage on the exterior and check everything before they took off, but you could think how if you're going through your checklist of things to look at, not necessarily really going back 9 days to when there was a storm rolling through to check some of these things against storm damage. I mean, I think obviously hindsight's 20/20, but he even said this is kind of a one-off deal, and the other planes were fine when they did go through and do the proper testing. So I think it just adds a little bit more credence to that type of historian type feature. We talk about the machine whisperers and the industrial side of things who just sort of have a feel for these types of maintenance situations. This kind of relates to everything now, I think, is what we're seeing, and integrating this type of data technology or data historian into those approaches is going to become more and more important because man, something goes sideways. Everybody hears about it. Everybody makes different conclusions, and we can get sidetracked on what happened as opposed to what the root cause of it really was.
Yeah, I agree. And to me, it was, I don't know, it was interesting to see if he's really pegging this situation on a weather-related event, what the implications are of that. Because I know that they're saying like, oh, we checked our planes and everything's fine. This is a one-off. But extreme weather is not a one-off anymore,
No.
right? So if we have to face more concerns as consumers on our own property, seeing like all the insurance claims and the damage that's taking place because of extreme weather and severe storms and the frequency of that, that's not expected to go away. What does that mean for the airline industry? Is this going to be an upheaval completely of maintenance practices, or how airplanes need to be stored, or what the ruggedness of those components need to be? Interesting to think like how this could sort of snowball if this becomes a thing that people need to take into consideration every time there's some heavy winds or whatever, that this is an example of something that could take place. That's really kind of scary to think about. Ben, what did you think of this story?
Well, the safety consultant for NTSB, right? And he was talking about this being a one-off issue and saying it was not an issue with the 737 MAX or with Boeing. I think it's good to, kind of clear that stuff up for any consumers who, who are already pretty sensitive to any issues with Boeing. But also reading about this too, it's like you wouldn't think, 84 miles per hour wind, that sounds, and that's pretty severe.
Yeah.
You don't want to be out in it, but you would think a plane would be kind of accustomed to that sort of thing. Seeing as how they do fly through the air at
hundreds of miles an
over
hour.
400 miles per hour. Yeah. So, they're not doing, 84 up there. Yeah. I think it just seems, really kind of suspicious that it would happen that way.
So you don't think that he's right? You don't think that it happened because of the storm?
Well, I do think it happened it may have happened because of the storm, but this just seems like an unusual circumstance. You wouldn't think that a plane would. So I could see how there would be a lapse in maintenance there. You wouldn't think, oh, we left it out in a storm, but that's okay. These things fly through the air.
Yeah.
That's kind of what they're made for.
Yeah.
Right? A little bit of wind is not going to hurt it.
Your 84 mile an hour wind doesn't impress me.
Yeah, they're kind of built for handling wind. Yeah, aren't they?
Yes,
No,
true.
that's a good point.
True, but and so yes, I agree. You have to, there's some other considerations there for sure, and especially too if so this happened to no other planes,
right.
or in years either, like other airlines, you're just not hearing. That's why when it happened, everyone was like, why did this happen? It doesn't happen anymore. So that is a strange element there, but I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens if it really prompts a new practice on their end, or again, if they're going to view it as like an anomaly.
Hopefully it just makes us smarter. One more thing to think about on the checks.
Yes, exactly. Just the alarming thing too is just with some of the severe weather, how little notice you get now. Sometimes this stuff is coming on really fast, so maybe things do get left outside that are normally in a hangar or whatever. Just another thing to think about.
Yeah, do they have enough space to park every plane inside?
I don't know.
Inclement weather.
I don't know.
Just one big hangar for all of
them.
them.
Kind of doubt it.
Yeah, they got
logistically. That seems really difficult too.
Probably have like a big open air parking lot.
Yeah, better get them in there. Yeah.
All right, our most popular story this week, which came as no surprise to anyone because of the subject matter, automatic ammo vending machines with AI begin operating at grocery stores. American Rounds, an automated ammunition dispenser company, has installed what is being described as ammo vending machines at multiple grocery store locations in Alabama and Oklahoma. The machines reportedly sell a variety of shotgun, rifle, and handgun rounds. While firearm sales face certain federal restrictions, ammunition remains largely unregulated in the U.S. Still, the Gun Control Act requires purchasers of ammunition for rifles or shotguns to be 18 years old. So reports say a buyer must be at least 21 to purchase ammunition from the dispensers, which the company says it enforces by using AI technology in the dispensers, including facial recognition software and card scanning to verify a customer's identity. According to American Round CEO Grant Majors, the machines do not limit how much ammunition a customer can buy. That said, Majors told IEN that the company can remotely shut down any unit and at any time if a shooting threat is in the area. Of the handful that have been installed, one has reportedly already been removed. The reason cited was the city council's concerns over the machine's legality, though one store manager also added that lack of sales was a factor. Who wants to take this one first? Ben.
Sure, I can start. Yeah, I mean, at first glance, this seems a little excessive, kind of dystopian, to have a ammo vending machine, right? But it could actually be a more secure option for selling ammunition. I was reading about, ammunition thefts. And last year, regulators in Delaware subpoenaed a Cabela's location after investigators determined that it had allowed 500,000 rounds of ammunition to be stolen in 1 year. And the investigators also alleged that a lot of the ammo was sold illegally to criminals in Delaware and Pennsylvania. And maybe kind of the worst of all, the state attorney general said Cabela's was still being really casual about its ammo storage and was, quote, stonewalling the investigation. So, I mean, that situation is kind of really unsettling. And so when you compare, something like that, a massive failure by a major retailer, a bullet vending machine that uses facial recognition to match up identification, doesn't seem like such a outlandish or bad idea.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Jeff, do you agree?
I do, actually. I think this is one of those cases initially when we talk about automation. Not sure why this was needed at a grocery store. Like, that seems like an odd mix. I don't think anybody's looking on their list saying, you know what, I need some 12-gauge shotguns, some milk, and some eggs.
Yeah. They just have, there's like a space where the red box used to be.
Yeah.
And they're like, we need something new.
That space is available everywhere.
The other thing that I think would make this difficult right now is the fact that when it comes to ammunition, like even 12-gauge shotgun shells, there's different shot size, there's different diameter of the shells, there's a lot of different variables, and some people are brand specific in what they want to buy. So stocking everything that you would need potentially in one of these machines would also seem very daunting, okay? So just from a business perspective, I don't know how this exactly works, okay? And I can see why it was pulled from one of these stores because it wasn't performing well. Mm-hmm. So just on that, in the way you're used to buying ammo, that could be very difficult. But I would agree with Ben. I think long term, I mean, if you go into, whether it's Cabela's, Fleet Farm, whatever, it's just boxes on a shelf. I mean, there is some stuff that's locked behind a case that you have to ask for and that they'll have to get out for you. But, I mean, other than an ID, seeing that you're over 18, there really isn't any other precautions taken in terms of who you're selling ammo to. So having something like this, which does take your picture, can identify the buyer and what they were purchasing, if something criminal takes place down the line, I think is a very positive development here in potentially putting more quality controls on this type of product. It's not limiting the purchase of them in any way, shape, or form, but I think it could be helpful. Just need to figure out how to make it viable from a business perspective, expand it somehow to include all the different options that people may be looking for when they are actually going to go into an outdoors sporting goods store to buy ammo. Then I think this type of equipment could actually be pretty cool.
I think you're totally right. Like, if there is a future for this technology, it would be in a partnership with like an outdoor retailer. Yeah. Putting it in the grocery store, I guess it makes sense, but it's just not one of those things you equate with.
Yeah, I just don't see how they could handle the volume or the depth of product.
Mm-hmm. So your point is like, you might be like, I'm not going to go there because they're probably not going to have what I want.
Yeah, it's probably a crapshoot. In terms of what you need.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, my takeaway was sort of more focused on the technology part of it. To me, obviously, as we try to examine the role of AI in everything that we do in our lives these days, I am personally I am hesitant to embrace some of the biometrics that are coming down in terms of security of those. The iris scanning, the facial recognition, the fingerprint IDs as an authenticator. because I just think it's really hard to go back from that. If there's no change password on a fingerprint, right? Like that's your fingerprint forever.
Oh, absolutely.
And as you like to point out, like the nefarious actors and hackers are getting more and more sophisticated, and there's arguably some of the world's brightest minds are at work behind some of these breaches in security and stealing information. And I think we kind of take for granted our faces and eyes and fingers could maybe someday be used against us. So I agree that there needs to be a viable way of identifying people, but the vending setting, which requires this authentication to be some sort of biometric, I don't love that, just in general, but that's just me.
I think it's a great point because we always talk about all this technology, the IoT, all the connection points, all of that wonderful data that's floating around, but what is often forgot, especially you could see it in an environment like this or in the industrial side of things, is that security component. We're assuming that in this case, whoever the supplier of the equipment is taking care of that. And it's a dual responsibility between whoever's producing the machinery, who's ever putting it in their, whatever their user environment is, whether it's a plant floor or in this case, the out on the storefront. There is a shared security issue there, especially when you are looking at a lot of this AI stuff. So I'd agree.
All right. I think we handled that story without getting into any kind of gun control debate. So great job, everyone.
Yeah.
Nobody wants that, I don't think.
Ben and I are on the same page today. We're synced up.
Yeah.
Big
time.
Do you guys want do you want to stand next to each other? Or
Next time, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. All right. Before we move on to In Case You Missed It, where we cover some of the stories that were not as popular on our site, but still, make a lot of sense to discuss, we are going to hear from our sponsor one more time. That's Oil Eater.
Oil Eater's household cleaners, industrial cleaners, and industrial equipment are specifically designed to replace dangerous solvents and are used throughout the world. Our safe water-based formula dissolves grease and grime for almost any surface and leaves a fresh, non-chemical scent. Our ultra-concentrated formulas are perfect for light, medium, or heavy cleaning and can be used on shop floors, in parts washers, to clean equipment, and more. VOC compliant, Oil Eater will do an excellent job in a multitude of applications, safely and cost-effectively, while reducing your chemical usage. Safe for the user, safe for the surfaces being cleaned, and safe for the environment. For more information, visit oileater.com or call 800-528-0334.
All right, this week's episode is sponsored again by Oil Eater. Oil Eater cleaners and heavy-duty degreasers were specifically designed to replace dangerous solvents and are used by industries throughout the world. The company's ultra-concentrated formulas are perfect for light, medium, or heavy cleaning and can be used with parts washers, shop floors, equipment, and more. For a free sample, visit in.com/oileater. All right, in case you missed it, Ben, what do you got for us this week?
Okay, yeah, my In Case You Missed It this week is Dune-Inspired Spacesuit upgrade allows astronauts to recycle urine into water.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Yeah, this one's fun.
Yeah.
David's going to be sad he missed this one.
Yeah, this is a good one.
He would have picked it.
I was like, this one's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I like this one a lot. So first of all, I love how the first sentence of this story refers to how astronauts, quote, famously pee in their suits
Famously.
during spacewalks.
All people talk about.
Yeah, it's like one of the most celebrated and well-known facts about astronauts is that they get to wet their work uniforms. That's like pretty neat, right? Like they're famous for that. Nevertheless, it is a fact. And some researchers are working on a way to turn that urine into drinking water. Since the 70s, astronauts have had to wear a maximum absorbency garment, basically a diaper, while wearing a spacesuit. And they don't love it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, not huge fans of it. At the same time, this report said astronauts have been asking for another supply of a non-caffeinated drink to be added to the suit. So this idea is like two birds, right?
Yeah.
Two birds, one stone. It provides a potentially more comfortable way of collecting urine, and then it filters it, adds electrolytes, which that's
there you
good
go.
stuff. Yeah, you want that. And then it sends it to the drink bag in the suit.
Wait, so it's a closed system?
Yes.
Oh.
Didn't you see Dune?
Yeah.
No, I did not.
It can filter about 1 pint of urine and have it ready to drink in about 5 minutes.
That's just too close to home.
Yeah. So, 5 minutes, it doesn't seem like. This
not enough
This
time.
was just urine.
Just hold it for a while.
Yeah. Like, just lie to me, suit. Yeah.
Is it still warm?
I don't know.
I'm sorry.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So
again, yeah. So again, even at this point, everything is not ideal. But when you're in space, you have to make concessions. I'm just wondering, how do you guys feel about this? I think we kind of have your answer, Anna.
Yeah, I feel great about it.
Don't love the don't love the turnaround, right? 5 minutes.
It's too fast. The turnaround is too fast. Yeah, and I just feel like poor astronauts, man. It's like we like these precious gifts that we have that risk their lives to go to space and explore and do science, and then we're like, okay, so you have to drink your pee, and then as a treat, here is probably those like plastic derived cookies that we talked about a couple weeks back, or astronaut ice cream, which is like a loaf of styrofoam with strawberry flavoring.
Yeah.
Have a great time.
Yeah, they're like, hey, we don't love wearing diapers, and can we get a Gatorade? And they're like, well, the best we can do is a slightly different diaper.
Yeah.
And then we can turn your pee into probably the worst Gatorade
into
you've
the
ever
Gatorade.
had in your life.
Yeah. So it's sort of we'll meet you in the middle.
Yeah.
Jeff, what do you think of this exciting and compelling product?
Well, I think first of all, so two things, and this is going to sound kind of strange, but just being on like a road march in the Army and stuff, first of all, carrying canteens, you would be surprised how heavy they start feeling after like 15 miles carrying them. So I can appreciate potentially not having to do that, and you also have a built-in system.
You're begging to drink your own pee at the end of that?
I'm not begging to, but I'm also going to say when you're super thirsty, man, you're not going to be thinking about where the water came from. You're just happy to have it. And I don't think they're going to be working in these suits for like days at a time.
Yeah, they're not.
So I don't think they're going to be solely dependent. It's just sort of there if they need it. I think it's more of an emergency precaution.
It's just for spacewalks, right? Is that
right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the worst we're talking about here is hours, right? Not like days.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're going to be drinking a whole lot of the urine Gatorade. But again, if you're stuck, you're probably not going to be thinking about too much where it came from. You're just going to be happy you got it.
Yeah.
So
I am a little curious how this cycle works. Can you does it just keep going through?
Yeah.
Going on the Dune thing, like, are they going to get to the point where they can collect sweat and all that too?
No, this also collects sweat.
It does.
Yeah.
It is.
So yeah,
I'm in. Give me one.
Even better.
I'll never have to leave my office during the workday. I can just put one of these on.
Remind me to never go in your office. All right.
Jeff will be like, "Can I take a bathroom break?" No.
Jeff,
Why did
Get a suit.
Yeah. Are you
You need a bathroom. We don't need bathrooms in this office anymore. We all have spacesuits.
get back in
Are
your
you
special
peeing right
suit.
now while I'm talking to you?
Don't worry about it.
Be honest with me.
Don't worry about it.
All right, Jeff.
Think how long we could podcast. Yeah.
Oh no. Get you a stadium, buddy. Jeff, what was your in case you missed it?
I picked up an article that said the demand for rare earth elements could help clean up abandoned coal mines in Appalachia. So basically the premise here is they're looking at, and there's just a ton of these old coal mines up in West Virginia and other areas along that stretch where they're no longer being used because we're less dependent on coal, but they're still in pretty rough shape from an environmental perspective. They're still putting a lot of bad stuff into the groundwater, which is not good. So it's both a potential solution for cleaning up these sites and these facilities, as well as meeting the demand for a lot of these rare earths that we're going to need for things like electric vehicle batteries, semiconductor chips. What they have found is a way to sort of filter the water that is coming out of these mines to collect these rare earth elements and then pump the recycled or cleaned water back into streams. So it's sort of looking to hit a number of different challenges at once. Obviously, getting more of these minerals makes us less dependent on stuff from China, which is contentious right now, to say the least. It also is cleaning up these areas in a little bit better fashion, and it provides some things that we need dramatically moving forward if we're going to continue to move forward with electric vehicles and increase chip production here in the U.S. It's also being funded by that 2021 Biden administration infrastructure recovery bill.
Yeah.
So that's where the funds are coming from. Some of the challenges right now is it's expensive to do, first of all, and also in terms of what they're able to actually get out of the water, it's smaller quantities. So right now they're looking at tens of percentages in terms of what they're able to extract. Now it's an improvement, It's not a win completely, but ideally the more we do this, the better the technology will become. And it is kind of ironic, the overall sort of sentiment of the article is, here we had these things that were so responsible for a lot of the pollution and environmental challenges that we have, and we're using those same things now to potentially meet these other needs.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a really interesting look at, again, I like these articles where we look at technology and it's focused on the solution. We know what the problems are. We've been there. We can hash those out as much as we want to, but we need to move forward and figure out solutions, and these folks have. And some of the minerals that we're looking at here, I mean, they're real. Some of these, like I'm going to just slaughter these names. Neodymium, which is, again, one we see a lot in terms of electric vehicle battery production. Gadolinium, and then stuff like germanium and gallium. Those are, again, big semiconductors and LED type components. It also looked at one of the areas too, as opposed to just these coal mines, also like old copper mines, which is something that's actually kind of been in the news lately quite a bit because we need more copper for these EV batteries. We did that whole story on that place in Minnesota where there was a lot of turmoil in terms of trying to figure out, are we going to open up this mine?
Yeah.
Are we not going to? What are the benefits? What are the potential issues with it? So if we can also not only look at using this technology as a recovery process, but maybe put it in place while these mines are in use to prevent some of this pollution from taking place, again, two birds. So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think that's great. And, obviously there's a environmental need, of course, as you laid out here, but like from a practical standpoint as well, if you think about what we've seen in the past from coal companies, especially those that have gone have defunct after they've left these sites, just like years and years of legal battles. Yeah. Even companies that are still operating, trying to clean up coal ash and get them to do that, it's very expensive. And so you think about how much, I don't know, how some of these companies are, if we're moving away from this, and we are, who is going to clean up the mess of this process? I mean, not these companies if they're not in existence anymore at the end of the day. So it needs to be something that can be scaled, which, as you said, if it gets more effective as we go, then that's even better. Ben, what did you think of this story?
Yeah, I think this is just further evidence about how in sync Jeff and I are on this podcast today too, because this is basically like the recycled pea suit, but for
coal mines,
for an abandoned coal mine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
so the coal is the pea. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think. Yeah. So right now the coal needs a new diaper.
It's all the water.
Yeah,
coming from the mines.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I feel like I'm losing the metaphor.
No, I'm with you.
I'm
with you. I got you.
But this is great. I love anytime you can do two things at once. This is a very beneficial cleanup project, and one that will likely be accelerated if there's potential for pulling in these rare earth metals and stuff like that actually has a use today. So it'll when you can make money off of it, that's gonna grease the wheels.
No, great point.
For sure, yeah. All right, the story I selected this week for In Case You Missed It is about a fleet of drones that have been patrolling New York City's beaches for signs of sharks and struggling swimmers. And it's drawn some backlash, which you would not think. You would think, what could possibly be wrong with this? It's doing a helpful service for these beaches. But the birds, turns out, hate these drones. So apparently, since the drones began flying in May, flocks of birds have repeatedly swarmed them. It's forcing the police department and other city agencies to adjust the flight plans of the drones. And there are concerns subsequently from wildlife experts who are worried about the impact that these drones are having on threatened species that are nesting along the coast. They said that the birds are very annoyed and that they'll swoop at the drones and because they think that they're having to defend their chicks from what they believe to be a predator. So so far, they say that no birds have been harmed, but officials have said there have been some close calls. So the drones, which come with basically inflatable life rafts that they can just drop if there's a distressed swimmer, they have not conducted any rescues yet, but they have spotted a shark. And so they closed a beach on Thursday last week because they saw a shark in the water. So already kind of a cool result of this program, this tech program. But they are concerned about what could happen considering this species called the American oyster catcher lives in the area. They call it a high conservation concern. And they said that either one of two things could happen. Like they could become habituated to the devices, which do make some noise. So they think that's possible. But the alternative is that it could prompt a stress reaction in the birds and cause them to actually flee this area, abandon their eggs, which obviously, would be terrible if this bird is already, a conservation concern. So a very interesting conversation about the balance to be had here, I think. We talk a lot about the benefits of tech like drones and other robotic devices in safety applications and being able to take humans out of the mix there. This is even an entirely different way of using drones to protect people on the beach, which I think is so cool. But important, I think, to take a second and be like, well, what is the collateral damage here? Or at least the potential for that. Because if they're serving a significant purpose, great, but are they? And then secondly, can they be modified in any way to kind of offset this? So you almost wonder if, like, in the future going forward, does, are we incorporating more people into the design process? I know that's like a pie in the sky hope for this kind of stuff, but like, how does this technology fit into the ecological landscape of where it is being applied? Are we worried about what happens, when we drop things into the ocean and we, send them out into the air and, drones are and people want to use drones for everything, package delivery. Like, what does that do? I mean, if birds can't even handle like skyscraper windows, I don't know what happens with drones if they just reach the proliferation level of what the expectation is. So I definitely thought this was an interesting story. I will be following this to see what they do wind up doing and how these birds fare in this situation.
I'm really surprised to hear that there haven't been any like serious injuries to the birds yet.
Yeah.
Considering, I mean, they've got to be just flying directly at this drone with the spilling propellers, and so it is a tough case though, right? Because this is a fairly noble cause, using technology to prevent shark attacks, right? Which are scary. Yeah. So, but now it's having kind of an unexpected, or it's hard to know if this is fully unexpected. I mean, did anybody going into this think like the birds are going to love this?
Obviously, they weren't thinking about them.
They weren't thinking. Yeah, that's what I worry about, is that that's just like the last thing on anyone's mind as they're rolling this stuff out. But
yeah, I think it's obvious that one of the sharks from the classic movie Deep Blue Sea must have gotten away. One of the super smart sharks and is now communicating with the birds to take out these drones. I think that's what we're seeing here. The birds and the sharks working together.
Deep Blue Sea.
What about the sharks and the jets? Do you think they'll ever work together?
The shark. Those are two.
Sorry.
I mean, that's a lot of snapping going on there. I don't know if that can ever be bridged. No, I think you bring up a great point about thinking about sort of the natural element whenever we're introducing this new technology into it. And we've talked a lot about like biomimicry and the role that it can play in design engineering. I think this is a great example of where some of those lessons learned will come into play or should come into play in terms of making these drones either look and act more like birds so they seem natural to the environment so they're not as disruptive, and taking things in that I don't know, sort of down that path. But it'll be interesting to see because, like you said, drones are being used for more and more stuff all the time. And if birds are not cool with it, they're eventually probably going to win out. So figure it out.
Well, yeah, and like I just feel like animals have much better instincts than we do. So like maybe you could fool us into being like, that's a bird, I'm sure of it. Like another bird.
The bird's like, check this out. Yeah. What is this thing trying to do?
I've seen plenty of birds in my life, and that is a bird.
That's a bird if I've ever seen one. Yeah, but like the birds are like, no.
We have to try, Anna.
I know, we have to try. That's all we can do is try. All right, before we get out of here, let's take a couple quick minutes for final thoughts. Ben, do you have anything for us this week?
Yeah, just a quick one. I saw my first Cybertruck, like in the real world, the other day. It was pretty neat. I mean, it's a funny looking car, but it's definitely an interesting thing to see out and about. And we were kind. We asked him how he likes it, and asked if we could take a picture with it. My daughter posed in front of it, and we thought it was kind of funny. But then when we were leaving, we came back to our car, and somebody else was like kind of snooping around it and actually like touched it. They put their hand on it, and the brake lights came on or something like that. I thought, you don't have to do that.
No.
So I would say, I'm sure if you own a Cybertruck, you're probably already getting used to people asking you questions or wanting to look at it all the time. And most people, I'm sure, are probably pretty cool about that. But I wouldn't touch it. Like,
No.
There's boundaries.
You don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, it's stainless steel. So it's like, if you touch your stainless steel fridge, that's fingerprints. Now they have to come out there and like polish it, right?
Yeah. Now they can use your fingerprints for 2-factor authentication.
So
whatever
it's like,
they want.
Look but don't touch. That's the new Cybertruck slogan.
Yeah.
So the Cybertruck is also like a hacking device.
It
what
could
you're
be.
saying?
It could
Wow.
be. You could get so many prints on there. Yeah, I've seen that Cybertruck too. It drives through my neighborhood sometimes, and every time I'm like, dude, Cybertruck! Like, I'm like, you guys, to my kids who don't care. You guys, look! I'm like, what? I don't-
It's a cartoon truck.
yeah. It's,
Oh, yeah. We saw it going through like the McDonald's drive-through. I was like, that's like cool,
All
man.
right.
Just doing regular stuff
yeah, yeah.
with your truck of
It
the
is.
future.
It is the next DeLorean, though, in my opinion. Like
You
the-
think it'll
the Cybertruck.
retire shortly?
Yeah. It'll just be, I don't know, part of pop culture that'll still be of interest, but not really catch on.
Yeah. I mean, I agree, but I'm trying to be nice.
They just have to, put it in like a
Turn
movie.
it over a new leaf.
Yeah.
And just trying to be nice to Elon Musk.
It is
very sensitive.
nice if you like that.
Well, yeah, I want to be nice too, just in case this gentleman's watching.
See, we were in sync. No
yeah.
longer, Ben.
Yeah.
No.
No.
I don't want to be nice to him.
Okay. We don't have to be nice to him. Yeah. That's a cool car. Not, or what, I don't know, whatever you would say to somebody driving their Cybertruck around, but I do think, you don't have to touch it.
You don't. No.
Yeah.
Good point.
Agree.
Don't put your mitts on it.
Don't put your mitts on.
Keep your mitts off my Cybertruck.
Jeff, what is your very kind and nice final thought?
Well, maybe I'm going a little cynical because I'm thinking about what I got coming up after this, which is a dentist appointment.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, got a little bit of a crown situation here to deal
No.
with. So David would be the one to ask about dental experiences because he has had just, I don't know, like horror movie type of elements when he's gone to the dentist. But how have you guys, like, do you hate going to the dentist? Is it just something you do?
Yeah, it's something you do.
Yeah,
Just
I
kinda
can.
pick out a spot on the ceiling and kind of
Yeah.
and try to think about something else. Yeah, it's one of those things.
I have
yeah.
always hated the dentist. Like,
Yeah.
from the time I was a little kid, I used to get, like, nauseous and, it's the
Yeah,
worst.
I think it would be pretty sick to be like pumped for the dentist. Like this
some
is
sort
gonna
of
rule.
sadist.
Yeah, I did get a crown recently too, and it was not fun. And then they were like, "Oh, sorry, it didn't take. Now we have to do a root canal."
That's a thing.
Oh.
Didn't
Yeah.
take.
Yeah, I was like, "Well, do I still have to pay for it?" I was like, "I don't understand." Like, here's the terrible thing. You had a terrible time. Now pay us, and we'll do it again. Yeah.
Oh,
I didn't
But
know
root
that
canal was
could happen.
not that bad. It's
actually,
not
I've
as
heard that
bad
from-
as
I've heard that from other people as well. They've kind of gotten it down to a point where it's not too bad. But hopefully they can just replace this because I hate the dentist.
You have to do this today.
I don't know. We're going. It's like I haven't been able to chew on the one side of my mouth
Oh.
for a couple weeks. So
It's time.
There are bigger issues, but I'm still not looking forward to them digging around in there.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Taking kids to the dentist though, that might be worse than actually going. I think I'd rather like get in that chair myself.
True.
Yeah. All right, so that about wraps it up for us this week. Please make sure to like, subscribe to, and share the podcast, and to email the podcast. You can reach any of us, as said, at Jeff, Anna, or Ben, or David at in.com with email the podcast in the subject line. We love to hear from you. Bad, good, whatever. People send us a lot of cool videos and a lot of fun comments about what they agree or disagree with, and we like all of it. So please do reach out. You can subscribe to our daily and weekly newsletters on our website, in.com or manufacturing.net. Please find us there. All right, guys. Thanks so much for being here today, Jeff, Ben, and to our listeners. We'll see you next week.